I haven't had as much time as I wanted to work on this project, so I'm not gonna release videos every week as I first planned. And I'm going to break down the latest video I did into smaller, more digestible pieces. So let's start by setting up a Python project more properly. I'm going to use Git to version control this, and so I can use the same code on both my phones, and also so I can edit it on my laptop in PyCharm, for example, instead of having to SSH into one of the Raspberry Pis and do it in Vim, because that can be a bit inconvenient. So I have created a Git repo that I might share later, but not today, and I'm going to clone that repo. Like that. If I cd into it, it's empty except from a readme file, and the readme file will be the main page if you look at it in GitLab. So there I will add all the information about this project. So I'm going to start to create a Python directory for all the Python files. Like that. So the first thing I want to do is to create some kind of constants file that handles all of the global variables, for example, which pin number belongs to which input, and so on. And I also want to define that kind of stuff in a YAML file. And the YAML file, that's just a data file that you can type in data that then can be read by Python. So if I go away from the Python directory again, and I create a file called settings YAML. So we're gonna have a key called pin, and that will contain all the pins. We have dial active, which is pin 21. So that's all the pins, and since they're gonna have different numbers depending on which phone I use this code in, I define here what numbers are needed for this particular phone. Another thing that's gonna be different in both of them is how it dials, because the red one starts on a 0 and ends with 9, and the other one starts with 1 and ends with 0. So I want to define which dial number is the first one. And that should of course be 1 in this case, since I'm using the KTAS phone and not the red one. And that will be it for now. And YAML is not a library that is included by default, so I have to install it separately. And I'm going to do that in a local environment. So I'm going to type in Python M for make virtual environment, and the path to this virtual environment, I'm going to make it hidden like that. So what's happening now is that it creates a new folder called .vnv, and that will contain instance of Python and pip, which is the installer. And I can install things just to that local environment and then run Python in that. So if I go into Ranger, my favorite file browser, so it says now that the Python folder is empty just because the file is hidden. I can set H to show hidden files as well. And here we have the Git file, for example, that has all the Git stuff in it. It's also hidden. I have my settings file that I created before. The README, that is the standard from Git. And we have the Python folder with a venv directory. And in here I have a bin for binary files, and it has a Python file that is the Python I'm going to run. And we have the pip, which is for installing Python packages. So I'm going to install PyYAM, I think that's the correct one. Yes, it is. And now I can run YAML. So I'm going to make a new file in here. I'm going to call it constants. And first I want to import YAML and OS, because I need to find the settings file. And I could hardcode this because it's going to be the same file location in both the phones, but it's more clean to find the file more dynamically. So first I'm going to make a function that finds the Python directory, the directory that we're in right now. And to do that, I can use the file command that points at this file that I have opened now. So if I print the file, then it will give me the file name of this file. But I want the directory name, so I'm going to wrap this into OS path dir name. And that will give me the directory of the file that I'm in right now. And that is of course the Python directory. So I can store this in Python directory equals, and then of course I want to return that. But I also need to get the project root directory, because that's where the file is. So I'm going to make a function to do that. Like so. And in this case I already have the Python directory, so I can just get the dir name of the Python directory, because that will be the root directory. So I can type in os.path bname, and then I'm just gonna run that other function. Like that. So now I can both access the Python directory and the root directory in a dynamic way, no matter where I put this project. And then I want to load in the settings. So I'm going to make a function called settings. And the settings file is in the root directory, so I'm going to call root directory equals get root directory. And then I need to define the settings file. And I could just do it like /settings. But I think it's cleaner to, for example, especially if you have code that is going to be used in both Windows and Linux, which is not the case in this case, but still out of principle, I prefer to use a function in the OS that can merge together different paths. OS path join. That will take the root directory and it will append the settings.yml file to it. And it will do that in the correct way no matter what platform you're using. In this case it's just gonna add the slash. But if I would run this on Windows it would add a backslash. And I think it's just more proper to do it like this, to have that as a routine no matter what project you actually are working on. So now I have my settings file and I have to open it. There's a few different methods to open a file. You can type in file.open, file name, and then file close when you're done. But I strongly recommend everybody to use the with open as F, for example. Because if something would break while you have the file open, then this will make sure that it closes properly. This is the one and only way to open a file. If you ask me, if you do it some other way, then do it this way instead. So we have opened the file as F, so now I can data equals YAML safe load. And the reason why I use safe load and not just load is because YAML is a very powerful tool that has a lot of functions in it. Some of them that might be bad because you can load in a YAML file that is running commands that you didn't really plan. You can basically create a virus in a YAML file. Of course, if you create the YAML file yourself, then that's not the problem. But it's good to also use safe load as a default, just because that strips away a lot of those stuff that can end badly if you not know what you're doing. And if you can, if safe load works, then why not just use that? If you run into some limitations, then you can use the normal load, but then you know also what you're doing. So safe load F, and now the content from that settings file is stored in this data attribute. And then I can return that. So now to read the pin numbers, I could just load in the settings from this function and then use the dict to find it. So I could, for example, do this settings pin and then the pin name, for example, hook. But I don't think that looks good enough, so I want to do it in a different way. I want to create a class called pin, and I want that to have all of the pins as class variables. I'm going to do this dynamically. I'm going to loop through. So this part is just returning the dict with all the pin numbers. If I add items in the end, then it's going to split that up into key and value. And I'm calling the key slot and the value pin in this case. So I can set attribute. Slot is the name of the attribute and pin is the value that I also added to the file. Like that. And I'll just print out pin hook. I also want to print out first index. So now if I would just Python constants, then it's gonna complain. Not about what I expected though. Now it's complaining that I don't have YAML, even if I installed it before. And the reason for that is because I'm using the global Python. I have to use the Python in my local environment. So venv bin Python, and then I can run constants. And then it prints out that hook pin is 26 and dial starts at 1, which is correct. So the final thing to do now when all that is done is to commit this to Git. So I can go to retrophone, git add Python constants, and I can git add. I actually don't want to add the settings file to Git, since that's going to be different in both occasions. Maybe I should make some kind of dummy settings just for as a template. With that added, I can do git commit to commit it. I have to leave a commit message. Constants value added. And then I'll push that to my Git repo. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching.